All right, folks, back again for another edition of the show, another week of the show, and my guest tonight back for his second stint is Leo Rautins, and Leo's there right now, so I'm going to add him into the mix, and we'll get going. What's going on, Leo?
Hey, buddy.
How you keeping?
I'm just good. I'm just going to set up my camera right here, and we'll be good to go.
All right, now, and you're all right to be doing this? Because I got a message just a couple minutes ago. You're all right?
I'll tell you what happened. I had a series of conference calls,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I go like, "What time is it?" I go, "Wait a minute, 10 o'clock. Wait, E. Smith. Oh no!" So I started texting you. I couldn't remember.
Well, I saw Kevin Joseph, scroll through here, and I know you're doing something with him later on in the week, so I look forward to watching the two of you on his feed.
Yeah,
I believe that's on Thursday night. Thursday night, he's doing that one.
Yeah,
okay, nice.
Kevin's my man. He's a great young man, and I'm excited to have an opportunity. I wish the subject matter was a little happier in these times, but certainly it's a great time to discuss. And Kevin is a wonderful young man, so I look forward to that.
Well, I don't want to take anything away from what he's doing, and that said, I think part of me, Leo, might have once ignorantly, and I'm admitting ignorantly, might have said, well, I don't know if this is a conversation that two Caucasian guys should be having right now, but I think all the more reason for us to talk about it, because we need to be a voice for the black community as well, and for our colleagues, for our friends, and for people that we don't know, just for the betterment of society. What's it been like for you down in Florida versus what we've seen in other pockets of the United States, certainly here in Canada, and across the globe, in terms of the protests, the movements, and the support for the community, let alone some of the angst that's coming from the ill-informed?
Well, it's been relatively quiet compared to other states. And remember, this is a Trump state as far as the governor DeSantis. So that iron rule, it's just kind of ridiculous. But I think, what, you made the point that, you got a couple of white dudes here talking. Well, we should be the ones talking, because the black people, the African Americans, they've been trying to be heard. They've been trying to voice their concerns, their issues, how they've been marginalized and treated. And the one that gets me is, when you say Black Lives Matter, people go, all lives matter. Yes. All lives matter. So you know what? Right now, Black lives matter. And if their lives aren't proper, then all lives don't matter. Come on, let's put this in perspective. So, it's upsetting, and I think it's really important, like you said, that we speak, that we support our brothers. And it's time. But this time feels different. Everybody says these things have come up and then they kind of fade away.
Right.
This feels different to me. Maybe the message is getting through. I hope so. I think more people are literally sick to their stomach over what they saw, with George Floyd. I think people are really sick to their stomach over that. And the unrest is warranted. And I'm really hoping that enough people get in on a conversation, enough people take an effort to understand and see what's going on and make a difference here.
As I've said before in other episodes, Leo, I don't know if I said it with you, but I try not to read the comments as much because I'm trying to look at you and make eye contact with you and have the conversation. But I did see one of the comments just scroll through right now. A gentleman named Daniel. And Daniel, you're entitled to your opinion, but the question essentially was, why are we getting political? Why are we talking about this? Well, because we need to, and because it's a conversation that needs to happen. It's a conversation that's long overdue. So with due respect, Daniel, you can have your opinion. You're entitled to yours. But if you don't care to hear the conversation right now, if you don't care for things to get political, we're going to talk Raptors. We're going to talk the 1-year anniversary. We're going to talk, about Toronto memories of the, 25 years of the franchise. But if we spend 3 minutes or 13 minutes or 30 minutes talking about some issues that certainly are affecting all of us in the world, then we're going to do it.
But, okay, I assume Daniel's a Raptor fan. Well, if you're a Raptor fan and you want to talk ball, well, Daniel, take a look at the Raptors team. Majority of those players are African American. Okay,
Yeah.
do you think it matters to them? Do you think this subject matters to them? It does. This is something that that has been an important issue and something that has been painful, not just an issue, but painful in their lives. So we discuss it because we care, and we discuss it because we want to make a difference. And I think more people should. And honestly, like you look at some interesting people have spoken up. Donovan Bailey, had some comments. He was speaking up. Did you read the comments?
Yeah.
Underneath, I'm going like, if you don't think there's an issue with racism, are you kidding me? Read the comments. It jumps out at you, right? And as long as you're seeing that, there's a problem, and we have to speak about it. So yes, we're talking some hoops, we're talking some Raptors, but hey, like I'm going to say it again, if you're a Raptor fan, take a look at who's playing.
Well, Leo, you mentioned a couple of moments ago about the people that have been responding about the All Lives Matter in response to the Black Lives Matter and how ridiculous that is. There's a great little meme or cartoon that's been going around. I'm sure you've seen it with it shows an image of a little cartoon of somebody who's hurt their leg, and the friend standing beside, kind of consoling the person who's hurt, looking at somebody else saying, "Go get help. This person needs help. This person hurt themselves." And then the person standing there that's being asked to go get help is saying, "Well, what about my legs?" And it's that to me, that illustrates the point perfectly. It's like, it's not that your legs don't matter. It's not that we're not caring about you, but this person clearly needs help right now. Let's help them so that we can help ourselves together.
Right. And we haven't been kept down intentionally. We haven't been marginalized. Now, there's other there's other issues where people have been marginalized. There's no question about that. But we're seeing the situations that have happened over and over that have to be addressed. It has to stop. My wife Jamie and I talk about, your kids do some crazy stuff, right? Anybody that's had teenagers or kids, but the one thing, as crazy as my kids have been, I've never worried if my kids are going to come home at night because they've been shot by the police when they've been pulled over or something's happened. I've never had to worry if my kids will be killed and not survive a little stupidity,
Yep.
or just a simple traffic stop. I mean, what parent should have to endure that? What parent should have to sit down with their children and say, look, if you go roll through a stop sign or something happens, put your hands up, so you don't get shot. I mean, seriously? I mean, come on. So I mean, there's so many things. It's sad. It makes me sad. And when I watched, I watched that whole incident happen in Minnesota. I mean, I was sick to my stomach. It was 8 minutes and 46 seconds of, I'm just going to watch you die. Right. And no one's going to come in and help you. I'm not letting anybody help you. This is a conscious effort, and then to not not arrest. And we're seeing it happen in some of the riots. I mean, you've got known people in supremacist groups or clan groups running over people, and they're standing there with the police. They're standing there having a conversation, having a cigarette, talking about things. They just ran somebody over. Would that be the same situation for a black person? I mean, there's so many things right now that I really hope we're going to turn the corner this time.
Leo, I told the story to Jonesy last week. I had Paul on with me on Thursday night, and we actually ended up spending the entire hour talking about racism and race relations and everything going on in the world. We didn't even talk any basketball at all. And, I kind of relayed the story to him to the point that you were just making about never having that conversation or needing to have that conversation with your sons. And my son turns 11 in a few weeks. I know our colleague Sherry Ford recently wrote a piece that
it was a wonderful article.
Outstanding. And she talked about having the conversation with her kids. And normally a lot of people, especially white people, we talk about the conversation and it's the birds and the bees, as Sherry refers to. It's not the conversation about what to do if you're pulled over, what to do when you walk out the front door, what to do if you're confronted by somebody, where to not go, that conversation. We don't have to have those conversations. And I said to Jonesy, it took me until I was 44 years old to experience any form truly of prejudice or racism, I suppose. And that was in Tokyo with the Raptors this past October, when I was pulled aside by two cops and shaken down and patted down, and I was searched and was kind of grilled by two Japanese police officers. And that took me till I was 44 years old. And even then, there were no weapons drawn. There was no anger or angst, but it was clear that they didn't like who I was, and they thought that I was suspicious because of probably being a white guy in Tokyo. But to think that people are going through that in our country and in the States and around the globe on a daily basis as teenagers, as even younger than teenagers, let alone as grown men and women, it's sad and it's mind-boggling, and it's something that clearly needs to be corrected, hence the reason we have these conversations.
And no question. And even look at the way people talk about, say, it's the rioting or thing, all these things going on are, have to stop. And it's unfortunate what happened to George Floyd. Wait a minute. Flip that around. What happened in Lloyd has to stop. Yeah, it's unfortunate there's bad, riots and looting. Flip it around. There's a life involved here. That's why it's all happening. It's not happening because it's a one-off. It's happening because it has happened over and over. I mean, read about Bakersfield, California. You see over there. I mean, they got it's normal. That's a normal occurrence that people are going to get shot if you're African American in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't know. Like I said, I'm really it's upsetting. Some of my best friends in the world are black, and I love these guys. They're my brothers, and I reached out to many of my friends, and I said, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry you have to live this. I'm really sorry your kids have to live this. I'm embarrassed, as a white person for a lot of what you're enduring. And like I said, it's people. I mean, I'm not judging you because of your color. I don't care. I judge you what kind of person you are. What kind of character you have. What kind of heart do you have? Are you honest? Are you sincere? That's how I judge people. And like, I don't judge people based on what other people have told me. I make my decisions based on my personal experiences. But to sit there and just say, black person, put them in a category. Come on. You see that with the indigenous people. I mean, I went through a few situations this year. Some kids playing basketball in Saskatchewan. And when I called people to find out about it, I said, no, they're marginalized all the time. Why? Because of the color of their skin? Seriously? That's a reason we have to put people in these categories? And it's just hard to, like I said, as we're both parents, I couldn't imagine having those conversations with my kids. I've never had to have that kind of conversation with my kid where, like I said, your life is in danger. Watch everything you do. Watch how you respond. Watch, that's a horrible thing.
Leo, we spoke on the last episode, and we will get to some conversations here and some stories about last year's championship run. But on the first episode, when I had you on, 6-8 weeks ago, we talked a lot, obviously, about your childhood and growing up and how you were raised and the respect that you had for your parents and that they had for you and your community and whatnot. I imagine from a very young age, and certainly through basketball, high school, into college, the national team, into the pros, you have had teammates from every walk of life, and you've played around the globe in terms of seeing the good in so many people from, again, so many different walks of life and so many diverse backgrounds in terms of your teammates and friends that you've had.
100%. You got to remember, my parents were immigrants, right? My parents came over to Canada. Now, granted, Canada was one of the few countries that let them in. They tried to get into a lot of other countries, but countries had limits on how many people, age of people, all kinds of things. And Canada let my parents in, but they were treated. They weren't treated very well when they came. And I grew up in a family that you respect everybody. You treat everybody the way they should be treated. And it's kind of funny because of the way I was raised, and in Canada, how, and again, there's racism everywhere, right? But the way I was raised in Canada and the environment I was raised in, where you treat everybody the way they should be treated, I had a unique perspective as a white guy playing in the States. I was in a lot of environments where I was, one of the few white guys on the team or on the floor. I never had an issue with any of the relationships ever with black athletes because I watched a lot of other white athletes that I was around and how they acted. They weren't necessarily saying, hey, we're the same.
Yeah.
I'm saying we're the same, man. It's like, you're my brother, man. We're going to play ball. We're going to have fun. We'll do stuff. I never had an issue with that. And it always shocked me when I looked around to see players have an issue. It's like, why? It's like I got along with the black guys like I got along with anybody else. Why wouldn't I? My teammates, or my friends, or my brothers, whatever. I always found that odd. I always found that really odd. But I think part of that was my upbringing. Coming from Canada, coming from the home that I was raised in, where, like I said, my parents were immigrants. My parents know what that feels like to be marginalized, to be put down, to be treated unfairly. My brother dealt with it growing up much more than I did because he was 8 years older than me. So times had changed by then, but I'm very fortunate that I had the proper upbringing to just take people for who they are, and not the color of their skin.
One of our other colleagues that we've worked with, both of us many times over the years, Darren Andrade, he relayed a story last week on Twitter, and he reminded me of a conversation that he and I had roughly a decade or so ago. And kind of Cole's Notes version here, he said, I remember having a beer, having a drink with Eric Smith, 10 years ago or so at an end of the season kind of wrap up thing for the Raptors. And, over the course of the conversation, we were talking and we got into racism and race relations. And he said, Eric said, it's not that bad in Canada. And I remember the conversation, and I kind of followed up, and Darren and I had a little back and forth civilly and respectfully on Twitter. And I said, the one thing I wanted to make clear was I certainly didn't say and never did say or never felt that it didn't exist in Canada. I just felt it wasn't as bad. And I think I've been awakened over the course of the last week how wrong I might have been, Leo, and how wrong I might have been at making that statement.
Right, but think about that statement. It's not that bad. It wasn't. Yeah. It's not that bad.
And I'm admitting my fault in that, right?
But so many people say it's not that bad.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. If there's this much,
100%,
it's bad. It's bad. And that's the thing. Like I said, yes, it's not as bad as we see at some other places, especially in the United States, right?
But it's still bad.
But it's bad.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's just the terminology like that white people use to describe it tells you there's a problem. As simple as that. It tells you there's a problem. So, like I said, it's about educating, being open, understanding other people. Like I said, I saw a great line, and I'm sweating, by the way, because it's 100 degrees of humidity. Is unbelievable here, and I'm sitting outside. But
well, it was almost 100 in Toronto today, the humidity, but I'm sitting in my nice cool basement right now. So
well, I like coming out here in the evening, and it's but it's steamy tonight. But I saw a great thing. Diversity isn't looking at people, the differences in people. It's accepting their uniqueness. Yeah. Right. People are different, and I think we're blessed in Canada that we have so many cultures. And like I remember during the championship parade, when I was looking down, I'm going, look at the diversity. I mean, to me, that's what makes Toronto special. When you look around, you see all the different people, and everybody's together, everybody's celebrating. That's the way this world should be, and we have to fight to make it that way. Like I said, I'm really hoping that we're at a point now where enough people say, it's got to stop.
Well, I think you said it best a few minutes ago when you stated, and I agree, Leo, I concur that it does feel and seem different right now in terms of the amount of people that have gotten behind the cause and continue to push the conversation forward at this point. This doesn't seem like something that's just going to fizzle out, nor should it. So I think that we might be finally on the right path.
I'm praying. I'm praying.
So, Leo, couple of people have written in here asking about your wine. Where's the wine? Before I get to the Raptors here.
Actually, I would have had a glass of wine, but I literally ran in a shower, ran out here, had a cup of water still left over from dinner. So I put it right here. I put my phone up, and I literally got here like 2 minutes before we were supposed to start. So that's why I was texting you. Are we on? So yeah, well, I should have my glass of wine. But
well, if you want to walk, get up and walk away and go get a glass. I can talk for 30 seconds if you feel like you need a glass.
No, no. Hey, wait. I don't need a glass. Now, I enjoy a glass, but I don't need one. All right? Let's clarify that.
All right.
Because so that's the funny thing about the twine and wine, right? See, that's the funny thing with the twine and wine. It's also the funny thing about the coffee thing I do in the morning, right? People think I drink gallons of coffee, or they think I drink bottles of wine. There's a difference between having a couple of cups of coffee in the morning, saying, hey, have a great day, and having a little cheers at 5 o'clock. Doesn't mean I'm killing the whole bottle every time.
Well, some days, doesn't make you a bad guy.
Doesn't make me a bad guy, but it's not like I don't need rehab. I'm okay.
So I was going to say, last time we did this, I think it was 6, maybe 8 weeks ago, you didn't have a handle. Now you do. So how or why did this start, like the twine and wine? I mean, you're down in Florida, you do a trick shot one day, but like what makes you decide to do it the next day, and turn this into something where it's now your handle, and it seems like you're as well known now, Leo, in a very short amount of time for twine and wine than anything else in your career?
Well, it's I have to say that I'm putting the pandemic at the top of the list, and here's what happened. So TSN wanted to do the horse shots, right?
Yeah.
And have some fun with it. Throw a paper in a basket, shoot in a pool, whatever you want to do. Talk a little trash. So I did it, and I looked at the response. People seem to respond really well to that. So one day I'm sitting there going like, I take a crazy shot, and I go, you know what? Cheers to that, right? And then I go, and again, people just seem to, and again, I think it's a couple things. There's no sports. Right? So people miss it, right? Also, hey, we got so much stuff going on right now. I think people are stressed. There's financial issues. There's health issues. People are losing their livelihoods. There's, like I said, the racial and the social unrest. There's so many things going on right now. Have a break, like this. I'm gonna throw some stupid shot up. I'll say something corny. Well, cheers to that. And the response has been unbelievable. And so it's a lot of pressure now because, well, I had back surgery back in February. So it's not like I could go diving into the pool and throw one in airborne and splash. I'm limited as far as, how crazy I can get. So if I could do all that, it'd be 100 more shots, right? So, it's tough coming up with them every day, but it's almost, I feel like an obligation to give people a little sense of, just get away from it, right? Just have a laugh. It's funny because I've even had some people criticize, saying, "Oh yeah, you obviously don't know what's going on in a room." I go, "No, I'm well aware of what's going on in a room, but there's also a lot of people that might just need to smile, might just need to have a laugh for a minute, and again, they miss their sports, right? They want to have that release. So, hey, it's that's what it's all about. So I'm enjoying it, and I like the name Twine and Wine. It's I came up with that one. So
I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed with the creativity of the handle and the shots. Now the key, and I know you've been asked this a million times. Thank God you've got your wife and one of your sons with you to help you create, creatively. But at what point are you going to run out here? Because I mean, I'm even. There've been days, Leo, I've watched. I'm like, all right, what could I text Leo? Like, what could I give him for an idea? Because you got to be running out of options in terms of things to do.
Oh, yeah. So I am. So you definitely got to throw some stuff at me. And here's the problem. My videographer, my son Sam, he had to leave. So he's not here anymore. right? So
Yeah.
now it's Jamie and me, and she's not always going, yeah, I'm going to sit out there and film this for you, right? So
Yeah.
there's a couple I did myself. Like I did one the other day. I'm kind of leaning over the basket, going cheers because I had the camera plotted. So it's not only coming up with a shot, it's being able to figure out how I can shoot this myself, or like I said, get Jamie out there and have some fun. But I don't know. It's like I said, it's almost like I feel an obligation to do it at this point because, like I said, if it makes people laugh, and the little guy, you see that a couple little guys get
Yeah.
on
Yeah. Yeah.
there, so how tough is this whole pandemic for kids, right? Their routines, their friends, everything's different, right? So like I said, if I got little guy James out there trying to knock me off with his shots, I mean that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. And he doesn't do the wine; he does the juice.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thankfully, we assume.
Well,
Um,
otherwise I'd get a lot of phone calls on that one.
just a quick shout out to Renee and Mo, superfan Mo coming in, Maddie and Joey, so many other people watching. We appreciate everybody that's tuned in tonight. Leo, somebody wrote, and I think it might have been Kevin here that was talking about 2020 for all those things you just listed off between social and racial issues to COVID to Kobe Bryant to David Stern to the list goes on. 2020 has been, let's hit the reset button, please. That said, as long as these first 5.5 months seem to have been as much of a grind as 2020 has been, I can't believe that we're right now in the midst of 1 year ago, we're in the middle of the NBA Finals between the Raptors and Warriors. It does not seem like it's already been a full calendar year.
No, it's it's still I can't tell you the number of times, and I tell people that I firmly believe the Raptors had a shot to win, and as the playoffs kept going, I'm going, they're going to win. This team's going to win, and so even though believing that, like wholeheartedly believing that, when it happened, it was surreal, man. You're sitting there
Yeah.
going, like I remember during the course of the summer going like, man, NBA champions. Are you kidding me? Right? And so even now, you still like every once in a while you think back and go, wow, that was some people never experienced that, and we got to go through we had that full ride all the way through, and the Raptor fans got to experience that. It really was something, and it's hard to believe. You're right. It's amazing that the time frame here.
When did you have a chance to truly let it sink in and kind of relish the moment for one of the few people that is a day oneer, coming in first season, first game with the Raptors, broadcasting games, and here you are, 25 years later and an opportunity to see this team as champions, as reigning champs. And, you think, Leo, of the flurry of activity, the frenzied moment of winning the game and the confetti and the celebration and the presentation and the locker rooms. When did you have a chance to truly take a breath and go, holy, they've actually done it?
You know what? Dave Collins was one of my players I used to admire, among many. Played for the Boston Celtics, won champions. And he was saying one time that, everybody was celebrating, won a championship. And he was sitting on some park bench having a bottle of wine, just sitting there. And when asked why, he says, because the celebration was the game. The celebration was playing. And so honestly, as this was happening, I was really enjoying the moment, right?
Yeah.
The celebration for me was doing it, seeing it happen, watching it happen, being a part of it happen. Like I honestly didn't let any of those moments slip away. I was all in, so when the game 6 ended and everybody, like, I didn't feel like jumping up and down. It's almost like I was ecstatic. But there was a sense of kind of, the game was played,
Mm-hmm.
like almost like as an athlete, you played the game. Now you just kind of, just let it sink in and just let it kind of flow through you a little bit. Because I was all in, the celebrating the game, celebrating the process, celebrating accomplishing it, And then everything after that was just icing on the cake. It was I just went with the flow and had a good time.
You got emotional as well.
Oh yeah, I mean, hey, I remember Rod Black and I were doing studio for a game 6, and right when it was right about buzzer time, we just kind of looked at each other, man. We called the first ever game, right? We called the Nets Raptors at Skydome, and we had an emotional moment. Believe me, we just looked at each other, man, and it was there. It was all there, and so I guess I think a lot of people had that too. There's a lot of people that felt emotion, but you got to remember, for me, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been part of the basketball scene, but I've been part of the basketball scene when no one knew there was a basketball scene, when nobody cared about basketball. My dream was one day to play for the Toronto Raptors. Or for an NBA team in Toronto, and that never happened. My time ran out, and then the Toronto Raptors came into being. But you got to understand, my dream was from the time I was a little guy, 8 years old. So this meant a lot more to me from all the whole context you put it in, than just being a broadcaster for the team or the team just winning. It was about the game. It was all the people that contributed to the game to get the game where it is. So it was kind of a deep thought, if you want to say. I mean, it's so many things. And then I always have to give props to my guy, John Saunders, because I was thinking of him as we kept getting closer and closer. John being my first broadcast partner and very close friend, and I kept thinking, John would be, I made the mistake of saying he'd be in heaven. He is in heaven. But, I have to wonder if John had a hand in that, because he loved Toronto. He loved Canada. He's a very proud man. And I just wish he could have been sitting there with us.
Leo, what a special moment it would have been for him. And it certainly was for us. That had the pleasure of being in the building and broadcasting the game and covering the game. And listen, even for the American guys that are playing for the Raptors, it had to have been special for them as well to see and hear the thousands of Raptor fans that somehow got tickets and paid, I don't know, God knows what amount of money to have tickets, to break out in Canada in unison. That was a moment I will absolutely never forget. It's almost in line with the actual championship itself, the party that was there and the Canadian pride that was in that building.
I had the same question too. Hey, you're in California, right? You're in Oakland, California. How the heck is a third of that arena full of Canadian fans? Where did you get the tickets? Like, aren't people from all around there trying to get tickets? How did you guys get all these tickets? And it was, I mean, and that's something we saw all last season, right? And not just last season, but the way Raptor fans traveled. We'd go in arenas and we just sit there, look at each other, go, are you kidding me? Right? Yeah. You walk down the streets in other cities and everybody's going, hey, Leo, Raptors. You're going, wow, wow. And to see that, when they were singing the anthem, it was goosebump time. I mean, it was definitely I give credit to the workers at Oracle Arena. Yes. They let the Canadian fans do their thing, except other than one cop and Masai Ujiri. Okay, they let the Raptor fans do their thing and enjoy the moment, and I thought that was pretty cool, because I always thought Oracle did have cool fans. I thought that was they had this great vibe about them, that West Coast vibe, and I always appreciated that. And it was unique, even different than LA. So they lived up to that in that respect.
All right, let me back up a little bit here before we again look at Game 6 and actually winning the title. And we'll do it kind of fairly quickly. I'm not going to try and rush through this, but we've already had a chance to relive some of these moments, because in the first few weeks, the first 3-4 weeks of the pandemic and the shutdown, of course, with the two broadcasters, Sportsnet and TSN, replaying all the games, we've had a lot of these conversations. But I guess it kind of doesn't get old for Raptor fans right now, because, again, we're in the week of the one-year anniversary. They lose Game 1 to Orlando. I don't know about you. I never thought they were going to lose that series in spite of losing Game 1. They're the far superior team. With due respect to the Magic, I'm glazing past round 1. Round 2, though, Philadelphia put up one hell of a fight, and that turned into a battle that I think we all saw coming, but it was such highs and such lows, especially when you think about, guys that weren't playing well for the Raptors, with VanVleet struggling and Powell struggling and Kawhi having to step up, and Embiid being a complete no-show in a couple of games, but then being an absolute stud and all-star in other games. The highs and the lows, Leo, it was incredible to see these two teams going punch for punch.
I think people have to realize, Philadelphia was convinced they were going to go to the finals. They felt they could beat Milwaukee. And so they were convinced they were going to beat Toronto and get there. So you're playing against a team that absolutely believes. And they were a matchup nightmare. You mentioned a lot of guys that really struggled in that series. And so it was a problem. And I think one of the keys to that whole series, obviously, your key players stepping up and doing what they're supposed to do. But at the same time, when they went big, when they went Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka went big, to me that was a turning point, because you had to do something. You absolutely had to do something. Philadelphia's size was overwhelming at times, and for the Raptors, I kind of wonder, let's do this, because you have, both of these guys are studs. Give them a chance, and they're smart. They know how to play. Especially, you could put Marc Gasol almost next to anybody. He'll figure out how to make you work, right? So you put those guys together, and it's. I thought that was a major reason the Raptors won that series, and I give credit to Nick Nurse for making that decision. And the other thing, the toughness. I mean, that was a grind. That was old school, throwing it back. Every possession, and that was pretty cool to watch. I really enjoyed that aspect of the series, and there were some things that happened, like with Embiid you talked about. Like, I don't understand some of that stuff. I've never called a coach at 6 o'clock in the morning, so I can't play tonight.
Yeah.
I may have called a coach at 6 o'clock in the morning and said, "Man, I'm dying. Can you get me help? I'm playing tonight. I need help." I've never called a coach, "I can't play tonight." So.
Especially in the playoffs.
And I talked to people around Philly, and there were guys that wanted to, like, they were not happy campers next to him, because they were going, like, seriously. So and it was I can feel bad or I can be sick, but my job is not to bring you down. Somehow, some way, I got to help you do what you have to do.
Yes.
But he was an emotional drain. So yeah, you mentioned the all-star moments, but he was also an emotional drain, in my opinion. Okay, so ask your next question. I'm just letting my cat inside. Hang on. Okay, ask your next question. He's
yeah, I don't want him killing your screen door or whatever, and having to see you out there.
No. He's actually out here with me, but he was. I think he got a little too hot, so he wanted to go back in. So all good.
So all right. So speaking of Embiid, then. I was going to say I'll go back to the shot. I have to talk about the shot before I talk about Embiid. But obviously his involvement in that play, he came within an inch or less of getting a fingertip at the very least, if not cleanly blocking that shot. But I know you've told the story a number of times, Leo. I was in the corner by the Raptors bench. I was about 10 feet from the shot when it went down. I still couldn't even see it cleanly because I had the entire Raptors team standing right in front of me. So the long images of that shot, you'll see me, but my head is doing this, looking up at the scoreboard because I couldn't see it. But where you and Maddie were sitting calling the game on Sportsnet, you had maybe the best perch of all, seeing Kawhi dribbling right at you and then curling into that corner. Maybe break it down again, as I know you've done it many times, but break it down from your perspective, how you saw it kind of unfolding.
Yeah, and again, I'm gonna use the word luck, because a lot of people thought there was a lot of luck. You don't win anything without luck, okay? Nothing. The greatest teams win. You got to have some luck on your side. But you create your own, right? So here's what Kawhi did. As soon as he caught the ball, first thing, his eyes looked up, right? He was at the top of the key, his eyes look up. And there were some mistakes defensively. Like, how do you let Kawhi get the ball in that situation? Tobias Harris, everybody should have done. They were all around there. You don't let Kawhi get the ball. Anybody else, but not Kawhi. And so, when Kawhi got it, he looks at it, and then he goes to his right. And Simmons had a weak chase. It wasn't an aggressive chase. And he saw Embiid coming from the middle. So normally, Kawhi liked that short corner. We've seen him he won a game with the Raptors, getting to that short corner with that dribble. So he knows how fast he's got to go. He's playing the angles. He's going to get there. So now he just changes in his mind, he knows what he's got to do here. He's got the big and he's got the angle, but the angle's got to be in the corner now. He's got to go. He's got to go wide now. So he everything he does is to get there. He knows where he's got to get to. Like he knows, like he's doing this little physics problem in his head. Here's Embiid coming. This guy's chasing. I got to get here. So he gets there and he does a great job of jumping into his shot. Right now, what does he normally do? He shoots a flat shot. You can't shoot a flat shot in this situation. So he gets down low. He goes up. He's got a back lean on it, and he gets that ball up high.
Yes.
Okay, and here's the thing. And Embiid, like you said, he was right there. I always tell shooters, you got one objective every time you shoot the ball. Because are you going to make every shot you take? No. So I want you to do one thing. Give the ball a chance to go in. How do you do that? Arc and rotation, right? Arc and rotation. So Kawhi, a normally flat shot, is up. And so I'm watching, and that ball goes up, and the first bounce does what? It goes straight up. So as soon as that happens, I go, okay. Like, yeah, okay.
Got a chance. Got a chance.
Because think about it. His normal shot, that ball is either coming back or going that way.
No, he shoots it on a laser all the time.
So he did everything right to give that ball a chance. So once it went up, and then it came down and went up again, I'm going, each one I'm going, okay. I'm getting more excited because he did everything right. In his head, he knew what he had to do, and he played the angles. He had the right speed. He had the right lift in his legs, the way he got the shot off. So, yeah, there's always a little luck. But the harder you work, the luckier you get, and he did everything to make that shot happen. So that's one of the great plays, and like I said, arguably that's one of the great shots in NBA history because for the simple reason there's never been a Game 7 game winner, right? There's never been. I was actually shocked to hear that when I heard that. I go, really? In the history of the game, there's never been a Game 7 game winner? I mean, come on. So that was a heck of a shot, and just the whole place just.
Well, we didn't get a chance to hear what the crowd might be like for the championship. It certainly looked like it was going to be close in Game 5 of the finals before Golden State made their comeback and ultimately forced that Game 6. But I agree. I'd never heard the building. Leo, I've said this a few times. It's so cliche, but I swear to God it's true, folks. That building, and I didn't have the headset on. I've got the earbuds in, talking to our producer and director and whatever, so I'm drowned out a little bit. But it was dead quiet. Like when they talk about the pin drop and that cliche, as I say, it's legit. It was quiet, and the massive eruption when that shot went down and the pandemonium from players on the floor to game ops shooting the confetti to coaches to media, and I'm trying to scramble through, and you guys are on the air and fans are going nuts. It was incredible in that moment to just be there to witness it, let alone experience it.
And to me, it really felt like a release, right?
Yeah.
Because you could feel the tension. And here's the thing, Toronto fans. So it was the Leafs, it was this, it was everything was bottled up, right? And so when that shot's up in the air, you could just feel all that tension. Like you said, you could hear a pin drop, and you see people's eyes in the pictures. But all that tension, it's all. And I always tell people what I think of when that shot went in is like you see these shows on TV where you got this preacher goes, evil spirits, boom, be gone. He slaps you in the side of the head. When that ball went in, it's like all the demons in Toronto just went flying out, right? That's the feeling I got. Like the release was so unbelievable from the fans. The only other time in the playoffs you could feel this explosion was the Milwaukee dunk Kawhi had to kind of seal the game. Was that Game 6, if I'm not mistaken, where he came down and dunked it over Giannis, where Kyle dropped it off for him. That was another just a crazy explosion because people go, yeah, we're going to the finals. So those are some pretty cool moments. They really were.
All right, before I get to the Bucks, I did mention that I wanted to ask you one more thing about Embiid. As a guy who's been there, Leo, and I remember this came up. I mean, it's come up many times in pro sports and in basketball. Last time I really remember it kind of coming to a front, at least in my brain, was with Adam Morrison when he was laying on the floor and the tears were flowing after a loss in the NCAA tournament. But the tears from Joel Embiid in the loss and the consoling and the comfort from Marc Gasol. What was your read on that as a guy who's been there, done that, played at the highest of levels in terms of Embiid's reaction, especially considering everything else that he went through and put his team through in that series, but then also the reaction from his opponent, the way that Gasol tried to get in his ear?
Well, I'd expect nothing less from Marc Gasol. He's just a classy dude, right? And for Embiid, I got mixed emotions on that. It's like I tell players, don't cry after a game or a bad game when if you don't put everything into making it a great game, everything into doing it right. You have the one game at Philly, you're flying through the crowd like you're in your airplane. What did you do? You won a game in a series, and
Yes.
you weren't performing at the level you should be at. But now you're going to do this. Um, how about crying for your teammates as opposed to for yourself? I don't know. I think he did so many things there that if I was his teammate, I just want to like slap him on the side of the head. Go, I don't want to see those tears. Not right now. Like I'm crying because you didn't give me what I needed. All right. And again, everybody's emotional, and there's some immaturity there. There's no question when you look
Hmm.
at Embiid. There's a lot of immaturity, and talking to people around the Sixers, there's a lot of that. I think some of that was, you know, developed over the time of the process, and they put him up on the pedestal. Didn't have to do anything. You're hurt. Just the way he was treated. It's a big difference when a player goes through that and then becomes the guy
Hmm.
versus a Pascal Siakam working his way through a winning team, and you contribute to winning, and you
Right.
realize how to win, and you just don't act that way, right? There's a big difference. And I think you're seeing the difference in the personality, the development, the intensity, the passion. You see a big difference.
All right, you mentioned the Bucks, the dunk for Kawhi in Game 6, but before we even get to that point, the Raptors came this close to not even getting close to a Game 6. I mean, I don't know about you, Leo, but if they lose Game 3 and go down 0-3, they might not get swept, but they're not winning that series. And what a hell of a game that Game 3 was, taking the Bucks to double overtime, getting themselves back in the series, and oh yeah, then by the way, ripping off 4 straight wins.
Well, I'll tell you what, the one thing I said, and I was actually surprised more people uh, didn't say this. After the Philadelphia 76er series, I thought that the Raptors were going to get their guys back. All the guys were MIA in the Sixer series. I really believed that they would come back against Milwaukee. Why? Milwaukee's a more traditional team.
Hmm.
Sixers just had that crazy length and athleticism, right? Yeah, Milwaukee had the bigs, but Lopez is a 7-footer, wants to shoot threes. Yeah, Giannis is a freak. But then you got all different size guys, so your matchups become normalized again. And so Fred, Norm, everybody's going to get a chance to get back into their rhythm. Because if you think about it, even Orlando presented length matchup problems.
Right.
And some of the guys started to struggle in that series. And it just compounded against Philadelphia. So, against Milwaukee, everybody came back. And there were moments, especially in Game 3, where those opportunities to come back presented themselves. And Fred, Norm, all these guys responded, and that's what this team is all about. Yeah, it would have been. You'd hate to see what happens if you're down 0-3, right? Yet at the same time, this is a team that never doubted, and I think that's what amazed me the most. Even being down 2-0-2, I think what Kawhi would, what are you going to do now? Go back to Toronto, play the next game? It's like. And the whole team had that kind of mentality. So, I've never lost confidence in that team, even when they were down 0-2, just by what I was seeing on the floor. And if you remember, they should have won Game 1,
Yes.
right? They should have won that. Game 2 was a throwaway game, and then Game 3, yeah, it was tight, but they did what they had to do. They won, and Milwaukee. There was a lot of question marks about Milwaukee going into that series. From a coaching standpoint, the knock on Budenholzer is he doesn't make adjustments. Okay,
Hmm.
we didn't see adjustments in that
Hmm.
series. Giannis is still an inexperienced star, and the Raptors have had Milwaukee's number in previous playoffs. So, and the Raptors are a better team. They made themselves significantly better. So, I think there was a lot to believe in if you're a Raptor fan in that series, even when they were down 0-2.
I'm glad you went there, Leo, because clearly it shows we've been working together a long time, because that's exactly what I wanted to ask you about. I know we talked about it on one of our crew calls when you and I and Jonesy, Sherm, Matt, and Jack were doing stuff for the Raptors and for NBA TV over the last couple of months. And you were quite outspoken about how you didn't think Budenholzer did the job and did enough, whereas Nick Nurse was pressing the right buttons. And before I get to the finals and talk about the series against Golden State, Leo, does Nick Nurse, or did Nick Nurse, get enough credit for what he did in terms of pressing buttons, making the right decisions, the right calls, the right rotations, his schemes across the board in the postseason? Do you think that he got enough praise for what he did for that team?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I mean, Nick was a superstar in the playoffs. I mean, throughout the whole season, really. He did amazing things, and he's fearless. He's not afraid to try things. He's not afraid to get out of the box. And and what happened after that Milwaukee series? The whole NBA says, "Hey, wait a minute. This is how you play Giannis. This is what you do." And think about what he did. The idea is you got a big guy that can't necessarily shoot the ball as well as he should. So you get off him and, let's say, shoot the ball. Well, that doesn't necessarily work with Giannis, because he's going to build up a head of steam, and he's going to come at you, and he's going to go in the paint and dominate in the paint. And the more room you give him to get that speed up, you're going to have a problem. So what did Nick do? He says, okay, I don't care who it is. Giannis crosses half court, somebody's there. We saw Gasol, Fred. It didn't matter. Guys were right there. They stopped him, steer him to the corner. Now you get your matchups back, right? And it's brilliant. It was a brilliant plan. And we saw actually the beginning of that with Ben Simmons in Philadelphia. Because what's Ben Simmons' weakness? Shooting the ball. What do people do? Give him this space. So with Ben Simmons, get to him earlier. So he can't, same thing, he can't have that speed to attack you. And now he's playing in a half-court game, and without the jump shot, it's hard to create those openings. So the Raptors did a great job with both of those players that in some ways offer a similar challenge, right? And Nick Nurse, and again, jumping forward to the box and won. People laughed at it. Hey, the Raptors won, right? It worked. And how much respect do you have as a coach when you can go to your guys and the biggest stage in their careers and say, hey, we're going to try this.
Yeah.
You haven't worked on it. You haven't practiced. And your best players go, let's do it. Because he had them. They believed in him. They trusted him. And they knew that he's the kind of guy, he's like that mad scientist, man. He sits there and goes, yes, I got an idea. And he does it. And I don't think he got enough credit. He deserves I've learned one thing. Nick's not a good coach. He's a freaking damn good coach. He's a great coach. He's amazing. And his whole personality, everything about him, I just love watching him work.
Well, look no further than how this team has played this year without Kawhi Leonard, without Danny Green, with injuries where, Siakam, Lowry, VanVleet, the list goes on, of guys that have missed, 10, 15-plus games, let alone Powell and Thomas and Gasol missing 20-plus. And here the Raptors sit at the restart that we're embarking upon with the second-best record in the East, with the third-best record overall, number one in opponents' points per game, number two in opponents' field goal percentage. I mean, the accolades just speak for themselves as the reigning champs look to try and go back-to-back. Now, what do we got? 7 minutes, Leo. We did already talk about the finals a little bit. I kind of went backwards, reverse, and back into it again. Siakam, unbelievable. Game one, first time in the finals, and he comes out and just explodes for all the accolades Kawhi got, and deservedly so, and Lowry and everybody else. Pascal Siakam had a great playoff run, but had a great final specifically in that first game. And the bookends of game one and game six, I mean, my goodness, for a guy of his experience or lack thereof, it was incredible what he did.
Well, what do they say? First impressions, last impressions, right? And he gave you the first and last. Game one and game six were awesome. And, I think we all learned to kind of expect that from Pascal, as crazy as that sounds. He's a guy that the big lights didn't faze him. The big matchups didn't faze him. Playing next to a Kawhi Leonard. You know how many young players would be like, okay, I'm not sure where I fit in here. Not Pascal, man. He just plays. And so it was fun to watch. It really was. I mean, Draymond Green, he talks a lot of trash. He's still talking trash about that series. But, Pascal Siakam took it to him. He took it to him. And, like I said, you got to give that young man a lot of credit because you talk about a grinder. Here's a guy that's going to go in a gym. If something doesn't work, he's going to go fix it. If he's got to get better at something, he's going to get better at it. He's going to sit down with the coaches and watch video. He's going to do whatever it takes to get where he wants to get to.
One of the moments that stood out in the finals to me, aside from obviously, winning it all, the image of Fred VanVleet when he got cut and lost the tooth or part of the tooth, laying on the ground, the blood spilling down the side of his face, but then coming back, playing with the Band-Aid on, and then Leo, the big three and the huge scream, just that image, just to me was a beautiful synopsis of the Raptors season and run last year, period. That just raw emotion coming out and just how that proved to be ultimately a catalyst for winning the game, the series, the title.
Hey, how do you win in that season? 58 games, have midseason trades. You got a new coach. You trade one superstar, bring in another one, and you have injuries to key players, and still have the second best record in the NBA. How do you do that? You got to have players that'll fight. You got to have the players that'll play together. And I think Fred, and he showed that this year, the 10 games Kyle missed early in the season, Fred played at an all-star level. He wasn't just a good backup point guard. Fred played as good as any point guard in that league during those 10 games, given that responsibility of running the Raptors. And that's one of the reasons the Raptors are in a position they're in, because Fred was able to stand in for Kyle. And the way he plays with Kyle. You're absolutely right. I mean, watching Fred, he epitomizes the fight, that drive. And, Masai wanted those two-way guys, right? When he rebuilt this team, he wanted those two-way guys that fight, guys with heart, guys that people, he can't play, he can't do this. Well, you got an undrafted guy that gets a MVP vote in the finals.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
How good a story is that?
All right, last one for you. We've got like 2 minutes. What are the odds? What do you think about this team in a restart at Disney World with a 4-month layoff, with no home court advantage? We don't know if they're the second seed, the third seed, when all things, are settled, when the dust settles. Leo, could this team repeat?
Yes. You got to remember, this is a team that, they're a great road team. Home court's not a big issue. I think the teams that are going to be successful coming back now are the veteran teams that can lock in, stay focused, not get distracted by having to sit in a hotel room for 3 months, know what they have to do right now to be ready for this experience coming up physically, mentally. You got guys that from the minute they won a championship, people thought, right? So they never had that championship parade in their or the championship hangover, because they had to get right back into and prove to people they can win without Kawhi. So this is still a hungry team. It's a smart team. It's a veteran team, and they can play with anybody. So I expect them to rise to the occasion.
Hey, Leo, I appreciate you doing this again, man. I know it was a crazy night, but you got in on time. I thank you for that, and stay safe, stay healthy. All the best to Jamie as well, and I'll see you up here, I guess, on this side of the border at some point soon when we're back working. So thanks again, man.
All right, thank you, and be safe as well. And to everybody out there watching and listening, be safe, all right?
Yeah, and thanks, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night with our colleague, Sherman Hamilton, for more stories about the finals as well. But again, Leo Rautins, thanks for joining us. All the best, everybody.